Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Life podcast. On today's show, I have singer and bassist Billy Ray. That's right. We're going to talk to him in 1 minute all about his music. It's pretty wild and crazy. I listened to it the other day. Before we do that, man, what are you doing right now? You're listening to podcasts. You probably want to start your own podcast. Podcasting's fun, except what's not fun is doing all the work, producing it, recording it, editing it, setting up RSS feeds, loading it on the internet, curating a website, putting up social media posts, blah, 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 blah. That's a real pain in the butt. And it's probably like 5 times more work than recording. So you know what I do? I just give all the hard work to Scott, who sits in Get a Grip Studios. And he does all the hard work, and I have all the fun with guys like Billy Ray. So give it up for Billy Ray here. But before we do that, you got to go to getagripstudios.com. Hey, Billy Ray, what's happening, man?
Hey, beautiful day in the neighborhood, my brother. Just doing my thing.
Awesome, man. So, your music you have a unique style. You're crushing a lot of things together. Where do you take your influence from primarily?
My influence comes from a range of things, a range of people, but primarily I will say it's somewhere between Prince and Prince. Prince and I get a lot of my influence from a lot of the early rock bands, ranging from America, Moody Blues. Carlos Santana. It ranges all over the place, man. I'm just kind of a melting pot. I came up through an era of, as a kid, we lived in the country and we didn't have 40 different stations like they got now. We just had one station that played like a lot of different music. So you have to sit through Elton John and Hall & Oates to get to the Ohio Players and Marvin Gaye. And at the time, it was annoying as hell. But, as an adult in the music now, I draw from all those things to influence the music that I make now. So, yeah.
You know what, there's a funny thing about music. You can get yourself into a music vacuum if and I find like one of the things that I used to love about CDs and records is that you'd go and let's say you went off to university or you went to camp or you went somewhere and you brought your CDs and someone else brought their CDs. And then you'd mix your CDs together but your buddy would say like, hey man, you got to listen to this album. And you'd listen to it a few times, you wouldn't get it. And then all of a sudden it would kind of work its way into your mind in that. I think people have got themselves into kind of music bubbles where they don't hear other kinds of music. But maybe they do. And I think that it's important to be exposed to different sounds as a musician. So that you can, take a little bit of, there's a little bit of plagiarism in all creativity to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny because with my kids, we'll be driving around in a car and we'll go from playing Lil Wayne to Kenny Loggins. And it drives them nuts. They're like, Dad, seriously? I'm like, yeah. And next up, we're going to listen to some Olivia Newton-John. Then we're going to come back to Drake. And then we're going to listen to Tupac. And then we're going to come back to Elton John. It's so all over the place. I was just playing Jim Croce for my son the other day. And he looked at me like I was an alien. So, it's, and I think that when there were cassettes, people were forced to hear all those other songs on an album.
Sure.
And when you got, even with CDs, they got to skip around. And certainly now, there's songs that just never see the light of day.
No.
And I agree. People get in this mold of, I'm in my own little bubble and this is what I like. And I don't want to hear anything different. I don't want to hear anything that sounds any different than what it is that I put on my playlist. And so what I try to do with the big picture is put folks into a position to where they're willing to take a chance on that next song. This maybe, I do a song called Time Keep On, which is a total alternative rock song. Well, I do another song called Darling Nikki, which is there you go right there, yeah. And I do Darling Nikki, which is a total R&B kind
That's
of
a
a
good
thing, you
one. I
know.
remember it. I listened to it the other day before before we had the technical issues. Yeah, that's a good
Mhm.
sound, man. That's a good song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Thank
a
you
good
so
one.
much. So,
Yeah,
yeah, so my idea is to have them listen to Darling Nikki. I
yeah,
mean, I loved it. What is that time keep on about? Or have somebody
yeah.
listen to time keep on and go, what is this Darling Nikki about? So I'm trying to inspire them to jump off that cliff into
Mm.
another genre and give it more of a chance. And that's kind of my big picture kind of goal.
Well, it's almost like you who owns who. Do you own the music or does the music own you?
Yeah.
You know, and if you
Yeah.
own the music, like we used to get deep into an album. You would be 8, 9, 10 songs deep, just listening.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd find some gems in an album deep that never made it to the radio, were never singles, and those songs would become special to you. And in some ways, it was super cool because you would know about a song that was really good by an artist that other people hadn't really heard. Hey, did and did you listen to the second side of that album, the B side, the last song at the end? No. Oh
Really?
man, that's the best song. That's the best song in the
Yeah.
album. You know?
Absolutely.
Uh so you talk about Lenny Kravitz and Jimi Hendrix and Prince, and these guys are artists that, kind of they were, they made music. Music didn't make them. They just did whatever they wanted to do. And so
Yeah.
when I think what you're saying is that, hey, I happen to be African American, but I can rock out too. Right.
In a
And
nutshell.
yeah, but I mean, like, that's what you're kind of saying with that to me.
Right.
But you're talking about guys that really carved out a niche, even whether or not they're black or white. It wasn't really the point. Like Jimi Hendrix was so much like so different and amazing compared to everyone else. And then Lenny Kravitz in the '90s was kind of doing his own thing, and then obviously
Sure.
Prince. So you're trying to do something different, unique. You're bringing country, but you're also, you're incorporating it with some of a Motown feel to it. Something's
Mhm.
going to explode out of that in my thing. What do you think it's going to be? What audience is going to like it the most?
It's hard to know. Um, I think if I'm gonna, I think probably that funk R&B audience, and
I
I only
agree.
say that because I think like it's a it's a smaller fence to climb. Like rock music, I love, but rock music, much like country, tends to be more of a kind of a fraternity, if you will. You
Mm,
know, and it's and you have to. They expect you to go through certain channels to get where you got to go.
mm,
And I don't think this is as much a race thing as much of a protocol, if you will, to
mm,
get to where you got to go. I
mm-hmm,
mean, there's always a chance that one of my songs will blow in country or something like that. But I'm just
mm,
to answer the question. I think it would likely be funk. I think that that's also the one like common thread through all of these genres that I cross around. As you just pointed out, when I do a rock song, you can hear the R&B in the chorus. If I
yeah,
do
for
a country
sure.
song, you can hear the R&B in the chorus. And so because it's a common string, it's probably more like.
See, I actually think if you, I mean, we're throwing big names out there, but I think you have a little bit of a Stevie Wonder vibe going too, man. Like that. There's
Yeah.
like I don't know what it is with the bass. I don't know. There's a lot of things going on. I think you're
Yeah.
right. I think the R&B and the funk, because I think that would be something that could become popular really quickly. That could
Yes.
introduce people to your other types of music, right?
You
And
know,
make it.
I was going to say, I want to create a situation beyond what I just said before, where when it comes to a live performance, I can take people on a journey, you know, um, and the journey will take them into types of music that they don't normally get to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a difficult thing to do. I mean, there's a lot of artists out there, like Taylor Swift, who of course started off in country and then went over to pop, kind of a pop country thing, and just kind of swings back and forth. And if you see her in concert, she goes back and forth from country and back to pop, and she goes back and forth throughout her performance. And And I want to do things like that with a live performance, but I want to take them even further into that genre. I want to take them far enough in the funk that they almost think they're at a, cameo or Earth, Wind and Fire concert or something.
Hmm.
But I also want to take them far enough into rock that they think they're at some kind of a, you know, um, alternative rock concert, some kind of Corn or somebody, if you will. You know,
I
I,
have a
I,
I have
right
a feeling that you've established your live performance. Like I haven't seen you live. The YouTube I watched was just a picture with each song. But when I was
sure,
listening to it, I thought to myself, this guy probably rocks out live. Part of it
yeah.
is the stage presence and the aura and getting the crowd into the music. I have a feeling that you're good at that. Just from listening to the type of music and how you play it, and that sort of thing. What I'm wondering is like you need to get a single out there that gets really popular in order to introduce more people to the live experience that you can put together.
Yeah, I talked to an engineer years ago, man. I was doing a song and we got this long conversation, and he said something to me that stuck to me. He said, man, he goes, he says, I have a lot of artists coming through here all the time, and everybody's got, you know, 14, 16, 20 tracks on the new album, all that. And he says, I'm going to tell you something, Billy, man. He says, remember this. You just need one song. You
Hmm.
just need one song.
That's it.
You don't need to come out with 30 tracks and greatest hits and homages. He says, man, you just do one great song. And all the rest of those songs will take care of themselves afterwards.
Sure.
But figure out a song you believe in and march around with that song like it's the best thing since sliced bread. And so I think you're absolutely right. You got to get people dialed in on that song, whatever song that is. And then once people are dialed into that, people have a curiosity to see if there's more. See, I gotta tell you, when I grew up, and for years it's been this way. If you went out and bought somebody's album, you would hear the hit, and you'd find that all the other songs on there sounded almost identical to the hit. you know. And so and I believe it's because the record labels was like, hey, this song sold 3 million copies. Let's get it's kind of like the Tone Loc, Funky Cold Medina to the Wild Thing song, if you will. You
Yeah, it's
know,
basically the
it's
same song.
exactly, exactly, same song.
Is that the?
You know,
That's a perfect example. Like Wild Thing, Funky Gold. That's all. It sounds exactly the same. You're right.
that's
That's
exactly
all.
the same. And then the
Sure.
strange irony, I think Wild Thing is like the number, I think it's 5 or 6 best-selling song ever. Funky Cold Medina is like 8 or 9 or something. So I mean, and so it's a weird thing. So I as a fan of music, when people would come out with albums, I would always say, "Hey, man, I want the songs to sound different. I want different sounding songs." And there's very few artists that was able to pull that off, from back in the day. I know Earth, Wind, and Fire is notably one. But of course, Earth, Wind, and Fire were a bunch of jazz musicians who did R&B, so they're a little different altogether. But a lot of people don't know that. But the point is, when I do my albums, even if I come off with a hit, I would love to be able to do a follow-up song that, although people are curious to hear it because I had the one hit, sounds almost nothing like the first one. And I would love to be able to do that. I think Prince was able to do that. There's just a handful of guys. I think Van Halen, they had some albums where, I mean, you can go right down the list. Michael Jackson was all over the place. But these guys are working with multiple producers. But as a guy who produces and writes his own stuff, I think it'd be an incredible thing to get, and I'm certainly after it. But no, to your point earlier, you just need one song. It starts off with one song, and that's
Yeah, that's what it is. And you know what's funny about that? I mean, let's take an example. Vanilla Ice, one song, right? I bought
mhm,
his album. I remember buying his album. I bought Appetite for Destruction. Then I think Vanilla Ice's album was the second album I ever bought in my life, right?
for sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, there was nothing else on the album. It was a complete waste of tape. I mean, there might have been one song that was decent, right? But That's pop music, right? So albums are like almost an inconvenience to pop music. It's like a
Absolutely.
formality of how the music industry worked in the 60s and 70s when
Sure.
amazing artists were putting together bodies of work that meant something to people.
Yeah, for sure.
And then
For
so this
sure.
album culture came up from the Beatles. We're going to put together a white album and it's going to be like this. And this is what the album means. And people are listening to the album backwards to see what it means,
Absolutely. Yeah.
like that's how in depth these artists were and connected to what they were doing. And,
Mhm.
and you'd listen to an album and it meant something. And then in the 80s, the glam rock kind of put out albums and biting heads off chickens and weird stuff like
Mhm.
that. And then you get into pop, and then it's like
Sure.
the album's like an inconvenience. All we need to
Yeah.
do is put out one or two hits and we're going to have a concert and whatever. And so I find artists today that I interview, and I interview a lot of them, there isn't, like, my kids have no idea what an album is.
Yeah. Well, very true. Yeah. Yeah. Same here. And I got to tell you, the concept of an album, as you rightly and quite nicely put it, is just that. And I think, you know, I saw an interview a few years back, and it was actually with Prince, and he was going on about the fact that artists now um, don't think it's kind of a retro thing.
Mm.
Like years ago, artists just thought about a single. Then we went to this big era, or how great is your album?
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to downloading and all that, now we're back to the single game.
Yep.
And people just they find a song that somebody likes, and that person will take that song and oh, I'm going to build a brand, and they get the followers on social media, and they start selling coffee cups or whatever the hell it is from their website with their name on it, got the merch,
Sure.
the whole thing. And so I think like um, the pressure of people to do albums now, I think from labels they want it because they need to be paid, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
They want to recoup their money from advances and things of that nature. But from an artist perspective, they're not as concerned with it as much as they are things like, just social media and building their brand. Because they know that ultimately, even if the label drops them, they're still going to have that, you know. And so it's one of those things. I don't spend a lot of time. I do a lot of songs, and one of the problems that I have, just as an artist, I know a lot of artists, fellow artists I talk to, experience this, is when you're a producer, you produce a lot of songs. You write a song, you do a song, you go, hey, you love it, you hate it, you're indifferent, you go on to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I talk to people after I produce a particular song, and I say, hey, look, what do you think of this song? Well, people will oftentimes, and this annoys me like crazy, specifically, they will compare it to another song that I did, as opposed to judging it on its own merits.
Mm.
So I'll say, hey, what do you think of this song? And somebody will say, that's a great song, but I like that one song you did better.
Mm.
And I was like, well, that's not the question. The question is, what do you think of this song?
Mm.
Because each song is different and likable in their own way. If you get into who likes what better, you're never going to get anywhere, as a producer. And so when I put together,
Listen, people don't have the guts to listen to independent musicians. I mean,
oh,
I'll
that's
be
true.
honest with you. Like, most people will not, the average person who's saying what's good and what's bad is looking
Mhm.
at the mob and saying, does the mob over there think this music is good? Yeah, they do. Oh, okay, then it's good. I mean, I was having a conversation 10 years ago, okay? This is like 2009 or 10 or whatever, right? And I was
Mhm.
talking to this guy, and
Mhm.
I said, they don't make good music anymore. There's no, there's not, there isn't. It's all corporations with study groups where they play a beat for them and they tell them if they like it and they show them pictures of Nicki Minaj as opposed to this girl, this girl. Which girl do you think's the hottest or whatever? Okay, we'll choose her then, and that's what the crowd said or whatever. And we were having this argument, and I said, okay, well, tell me an artist that has made an impact in the world lately. And he comes up with Psy, Gangnam Style. I almost passed out.
Oh my goodness.
Like, I mean, I got nothing against Psy. I don't have nothing against Gangnam Style. Okay? And in
Wow.
fact, I appreciate the message of the song, which is kind of sarcastic and it's poking fun at the way
Sure.
people behave in somewhere in South Korea. Okay.
Sure.
But we're
Yeah.
not going to stack that next to the Beatles or Jimi Hendrix. You understand what I'm saying? Like that, we're not having that
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, most people are just literally positioning their taste next to what the mob is saying. Hand them an independent an independent album, and say, put this in your CD player in your car and listen to it 5 times and tell me if the music is good or not. Most people don't
Yeah.
have the guts to answer that question, man.
They don't. You know, it's funny. I was watching an interview with the rapper DMX, and they asked him. They said, what goes through your mind when you're putting a song together? And he said, honestly, man, what I figured out is you gotta convert the coolest kid of the pack. And
Okay.
if you make the coolest kid like you,
Oh yeah,
he'll
yeah.
convince the rest.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're like the big dog,
Sure.
And I thought, it's so true. And it's kind of, in effect, what we're saying here is that people are pack driven.
Yep.
And when you jump out, and I get DMs from people all the time. I get DMs from rockers who say, hey, man, how you going to say you do rock and you're doing this dance with me bullshit, or whatever. And I'm like, wait, man, because I do all kinds of music. Then I get people who do R&B who will send me DMs going, what do you think you're doing rock, man? That's a bunch of white boy shit. And it's like, yeah, I mean,
That's a good sound, man.
Yeah, listen, like, you got, I think, what is there not to like about this song?
You know what, man? As soon as I heard it, I think I listened to that one twice the other day.
Yeah.
Okay, I just like the way it started. It came in. It was, you were the way you were singing too. You had that. Come on, it had that to it. This idea that I think people in the 80s, so in the 60s and 70s, people liked music, and there wasn't like a racial tie to any kind of music.
Right.
To me, I mean, I wasn't alive then, but when I read stuff, it didn't feel like that. It felt like people liked good music, and there were bands that had black people in them, all black people, and there were bands that had all white people in them. But all those people were musicians, very good musicians, and they wrote their own music. And, some of these, like the Temptations, we would have like 10 people, right?
Yeah.
And so, but as things move forward from there into the 80s, you had this like separation based on race or something, where white people like this kind of music. White people like this kind. And black people, they like that kind of music. And that's black people music. It's almost like it got weird. And then I think guys like Tupac and Biggie Smalls kind of broke that down a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, I think what happened with rap specifically is I remember when rap came out, it was fun music. It was, the hip, the hop, the hibbit, the hip hop, Steel Gang, and it was fun. And somewhere
Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. When I was dead,
absolutely,
man, I couldn't picture this. Sure.
Yeah. So what happened was the rappers started to come on board and said, "Oh, we got to rap about our pain because we're not happy," which is fine.
Sure.
But when they start talking about their pain, this is early on in rap. I'm talking like
mid-90s?
82-ish.
Oh, 82.
No, they were 81, 82-ish.
Ooh, okay.
I'm talking about the birth of NWA and those types of things.
Yeah.
And when they came in, it was okay. Everybody's like, we're fine, man. You're in these bad situations. We understand you got to express yourself. But along with them expressing themselves, they start saying, and it's the blue-eyed devil, and it's the white man, and the white man. And record labels huddle around the rappers and goes, look, I know you want to talk about white people, but guess what? That's who's going to be buying your CDs. So you need to drop the kill the white man shit.
That's funny.
Or, and suddenly it was like, boom. And all of a sudden we got into the 90s. Let's rap about our big cars. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, we got ice and grills. And so it started this kind of metamorphosis, And I think like, as music has kind of progressed, I think and people found, because we're in this age of individualism now, where everybody gets to listen to what they want to listen to, watch what they want to watch. Everybody's got DVR recorders at the house, you know. And I think that it's a situation now to where when it came time to divide, everybody wanted to run in different directions, but because of the Pox and the Biggies, and it's like, hey, you know what? We all like this stuff of all colors. I mean, you don't get the number one album on Billboard because 40 brothers in the hood think you're dope. You know what I'm saying? It's because Mexicans and Chinese and white folks and everybody is buying your stuff. And and I think like it's a situation to where you hope that something's going to happen to kind of bring people back to the center. Like I think years ago, um, when this law passed and they were able to clear channel, those guys were able to gobble up all the little radio stations and make them a corporation. I thought that was a hard hit for music, because the radio stations became more corporate. And there was no little radio station you could take your single to. Go, you like my song? And have them play it, and they can call up their buddy as a neighbor radio station and so on. And now you got a hit. Now you go to the little radio station, you go, I'm sorry, it's got to be cleared through corporate. Sorry. And,
The
and you're back to the
playlist the
garage.
playlist is made 3 months ago, bud. It's already in the play. It's
Exactly.
already programmed. We're just trying to
Yeah.
fill ad space here, bud. You want to buy some ads? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. But like I just experienced this on the 4th of
Yeah,
July. 4th of July was coming to go. That's right. I got a song called We in the USA,
sure.
and I never done anything with it. And I was talking to Mike, and he said, you should send this. My manager, he said, you should send it to a radio station, man. See what. So I called the local radio station just for kicks. Oh, hey, this is called. I got this song, and the lady said to me, well, the playlists were made like almost a month ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's doubtful. But it is a 4th of July song, and the 4th of July is next week.
Sure.
So we respect that, but the list is
Yeah.
weird.
Sure. You know what though? A lot of radio stations are under pressure. I mean, radio used to be very, very, very local. It used to have a lot of personality to it. Now
Sure.
you have Stream the World. You can get any radio station you want on your phone and stream it. It's
Yeah.
not the same. It's not the same connection to
True.
the local. But there are local radio stations out there. But I think Scott. You know what? I think I kind of agree with Billy here. But let me ask you. Let's take it in another direction here. So
Sure.
you're a professional musician. So do you do anything else to work, or you only produce music and make music and do
I
shows?
just do music. I don't mention this a lot in my bio, but I was a professional. I'm a professional stand-up comedian.
Okay.
Headlining. I
Sure.
did it for 15 plus years, and so whenever I get a chance, I get out and I'll go do a show. With the coronavirus, that's not really possible right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but other than that, this has kind of been my gig. I've had a lot of weird jobs along the way. Um, you know, Ranging from sales and more sales and selling, everything. I sold everything but cars, I think. I did the credit card processing sales. I did just a lot of weird jobs. But right now, no, music is my thing. And this is what I do. I'm in the studio making beats. And, as a producer, I sell a lot of beats to rappers and things of that nature, and keeps the lights on and allows me to do what I love to do. It's a strange thing because, I try to um, stay focused on getting me out there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be challenging, but it's easy because I get to witness a lot of mistakes that other artists make.
Sure.
Um, and say to myself, I'm not going to do that, or that was a bad idea. And it also gives me a little bit of insight as to what I can do to maybe be a little different from the last guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to a buddy of mine about this the other day, for example. Um, it used to be with R&B dance songs, that's all there were mostly, you know. Yeah, you go back to the 70s and you kind of get into the 80s. You get into the 90s, they became fewer and fewer. Before you knew it, the only R&B dance song was "This Is How You Do It," Montel Jordan. Then it was the
Mm-hmm.
thong song with Cisco. And then a few years after that, you had Usher and "Yeah." And then you had, the Happy song by Pharrell. I mean, they were just kind of here and there, you know. And so there right now, there's nobody out there that does R&B dance. So I
Hmm.
think one of
What do
the
you call
benefits of
Drake? Is he like a mumble rapper? Like, what's his deal? Like
um,
the thing I don't like about, and I'm Canadian. I know Drake's from Canada. I actually, I think he's a brilliant business person, but every single one of his songs sounds exactly the same to me.
absolutely they do. Yeah.
Baba dibba
I, I
dabba dabba boo doo doo. Baba
oh
dabba
yeah.
dibba ding dong doo doo jibba dibba da hum. Girl, you know I want you on the side. Huh, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. It's like I don't even know if it qualifies as music. To be honest with you,
Yeah,
I
he's
hate
a
to say
mumble
that.
rapper.
That's me.
No, no, I agree. I think he's a mumble rapper. I think, you know, he's been able to monetize what he does better than anybody. But I don't, I don't see a. I see a lot of discipline in the sense that if you're an artist and you're that successful, it can be really tempting to change things up just to keep your days more exciting. So it takes a lot of discipline to go in the studio and iron out the same stuff you've been doing.
Mm.
But from a creative standpoint, I don't really, I don't think it's very creative. I mean, I got a lot of issues with, some of these guys. For example, every time I see an award that goes out and a DJ is winning an award for best new artist, I cringe. Because unless you're singing, rapping, or playing an instrument overtly, like a Carlos Santana, that kind of thing, you should not be listed as the artist. You're the producer.
Exactly.
Just because you jump on there every now and then and go, yeah, we're the best. Hell yeah. That doesn't make you like I respect Dr. Dre. He does the beats and all that, but guess what? He drops 16 bars on the song, where he's actually rapping. So I've got all kinds of issues with the way some of this stuff is done. I guess I'm just too old school for my own good, I suppose.
I think Dr. Dre is a genius, but not a musical genius. Okay.
Okay.
I actually think he's a genius business person. And I don't know if he came up with this, but he's a very rich man. So I actually think
Mm-hmm.
it probably was his idea. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think they should teach it in business school. Okay. What he
Mm-hmm.
did. So I believe that Eminem and Snoop Doggy Dogg are all on his record label, or were at some point,
Yes.
right? Okay. Or he brought
Yeah.
those guys out, right? So here's the
Absolutely.
Dr. Dre school of starting a new entrepreneurial venture, aka new rapper. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What is your name? Where are you from? And why are you
Mm-hmm.
badass?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you have to
Yep.
come out and announce those three things. My name is Snoop Doggy. No, West Coast
Yeah.
bomb, licky dicky, whatever he does, right? And then you got
Yep.
with, and then all of a sudden, Eminem comes, Dr. Dre, man, this is such an honor, man. I'm so glad you're producing my album. My name is Eminem. He's like, nah, no, we're gonna go with something other than Eminem. What? No, it's my name. That's my thing. I'm Eminem. No, it's not gonna work. You got to be with someone else. Well, I could go Slim Shady. Perfect. You're Slim Shady. Slick as Slim
Yeah.
Shady with the real Shady. Please stand up. So there's like a corporate way. I'm from Detroit, coming out of Detroit, this kind of stuff, and I'm back. So there's like a way of doing it. I think Drake did it, and for Toronto. But I think the
Yeah.
vast majority of African Americans have no idea who Drake really is.
Yeah. Oh, I agree, and I think that's true. I will say something about the Dr. Dre thing, though.
Mm,
I think Dr. Dre is a genius at two things.
okay.
The first thing I think he's a genius at is the word different.
Okay.
He understands what sounds different. Because before you get to those guys saying who they are on those hits, somebody had to hear them rap and the tone of their voice to go, wow, that guy sounds different. It's a
Mm,
different tone to his voice. It's just different. The second thing I think that he's a genius at, and I don't know if necessarily he's a genius at this, but you got to give him credit because I guess he's the one that signed off on it ultimately. Although I think he's got a team of DJs and people. Like there's a local ear and there's a national ear. He's got a national ear.
mm,
He can hear songs and go, people nationwide and possibly worldwide is going to love this.
Mm.
And not everybody has it. In fact, I think most musicians suffer from a local ear. They impress everybody in the Seattle area or everybody in the DC area, but people in Texas hate it. And you got to have ears that are universal enough that people across the country will hear your stuff and go, man, that sounds good. They love it in North Carolina. They love it in Southern California,
Hmm.
and on and on. You know,
I think
um,
that's that most Canadians have a local ear too, Canadian musicians, right? So they'll have like a local ear and they can't cut it
I
south of
believe.
the border. That's the same problem. I
Yeah,
think you're right. He's got a
yeah,
national ear. So it's like he's sitting there and he's like, you know what? I think the rap crowd who's used to hearing African Americans rap, I think they're going to like this Slim Shady character. Why is that?
absolutely.
He's a white boy from Detroit? Yeah, you guys are going to like him. No way. Yeah, way. He kind of knows it, and then it spreads like, yeah, you're right. Actually, you're right. And I think
Yeah,
also I'm an entrepreneur, businessman. He's also a business genius, which is where he has his his marketing genius. Yeah, he's a smart guy. But
absolutely. And it was what?
what do we do about like? I think that, and I've talked to other musicians about this, and I believe that the music created in any given time and that's accepted by young people. So say, I don't know, 15 to 30, something like that. Maybe it's 12 to 25. But in that range, that range of new consumers that they're going to remember this was the song of when they were 19, the song of the summer when they were 19 and they met their boyfriend or whatever, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? That
Yeah,
age group.
absolutely. Yeah,
And I think that the music shows the depth of the energy and the soul of that generation. And what concerns me is that a lot of people talk about problems with consumerism and kids associating their status not with who they are, but their devices and their cars and their clothes and this sort of stuff. I don't know. I'm not going to state it. I have said it before, but I think that music today is very shallow and
yep,
it's made that way on purpose. And they do it because that's what people want. And that makes me sad, Billy.
yeah. I think the the lack of depth in music today. I think um, I think it's a lot of it has to do with the short attention span that exists now because people have so many different things to grab folks' attention. And so there's a feeling, I think, when people hear music, is that it's got to make its point quick, number one. And number two, it can't be that involved because I got to get on to the next thing.
Mm.
And I think it's the whole short attention span is false in its attitude of people not really wanting to hear stuff that really moves them, music, the way maybe it used to. And I think I don't think it's anything that can be really resolved. I think when I do songs, I don't think you can really slow walk people into your perspective in a song the way you used to be able to. I remember the during the disco era, you had songs that went 10 and 15 minutes long,
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
because they just wanted the beat to keep going. So if you went 3 or 4 minutes into it before you got to the good part, it was okay, back then. And then you go 10 years before that, where the average song was like 2.5 minutes long,
Hmm.
like the whole song. And
Yeah, sure.
then by the time Naughty by Nature is the song OPP, rang in, I think 4 minutes and 20 seconds or something.
Mm.
So, I mean, I think that nowadays people have kind of barreled it down to, okay, if you're going to talk and it's going to be a while and it's a great beat and it's great lyrics and all that, don't get too deep if you want me to hang around because I might want to jump off at any minute because I got other things I could be doing. I'm kind of, sending a tweet while this thing is playing, and then I'm going to go over to Facebook and I'm going to go here and I got the remote in one hand and they got all these different distractions in front of them. So I don't think, sadly, people want the emotional involvement in the tunes now that they once did. I think a lot of it's just because of the short attention span nature of our culture and society.
I think you're right. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it makes me sad because so I remember I lived in Belfast, Northern Ireland for a year. I don't know,
Oh, nice.
1998, 99. Okay.
Yeah.
And the room I lived, the building I lived in, had one telephone, payphone in the base in the ground floor. That was the only telephone in the whole place.
Oh,
So
wow.
if my parents wanted to call me from Toronto, they had to call long distance, and
Mhm.
some weirdo would answer the phone and they'd say, "Hey, is Michael from room 301, 314 there?" That person would have to walk up the stairs to the eighth floor if someone was on the eighth floor or whatever. Actually, no, it had an elevator. They could come up the elevator. They'd come to my room. They'd knock on the door, see if I was there. If I
Mhm.
wasn't there, they would have to go back down to the phone and they would have to say, "Hey, can I take a message for you? There's a chalkboard." And they would write a message in there. Okay.
Wow.
And so that year, um, I was, no one had a computer. There was computer labs where you could go and send emails, but mostly we were operating off mail, like sending letters. Okay.
Wow.
And so that year of my life, I was able to, just realizing right now, just based on what you're saying, I got really deep into albums of music. I would listen to albums over and over again, different CDs, because nobody bothered me. I didn't have anything else to do. There was only
Yeah.
books to read, right? And now my kids watch TV while they're on their phones. Like they're watching a movie
Unbelievable.
and they're on their
Yeah.
phones at the same time. Like, how are you watching
Yeah.
the movie? No, I can do both. Not really. Nah, you can't do both, actually.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. And I think, like, I say to people all the time, even people who think that they've got great multitasking skills, there's only one you. And if you're talking to two people, whatever that pie is that makes you up, it's now split in half. You talk to three, it's split into thirds, and so on and
Hmm.
so forth. you
True.
know and so the idea that, even when you're talking to somebody and they're typing on their phone, they go, "Oh, I'm listening." Well, they may hear you,
They may
but
hear
they're not
you.
listening to a damn word you're saying, but they hear you. Yeah, sure. Just like they heard the car whiz by honking their horn. They
Yeah.
hear all that, but they're not really listening specifically to the contents of what you're saying, and that's easy to tell by the reactions. And I think so much, um, people hear music or they're not listening, you know and if they hear it, and to the point we were making earlier, if they hear it and their friends are telling them that that's what they're listening to, then they'll take some time and actually listen to it.
Hmm.
And they may or may not like it, but they'll take that time after they heard that's what their friends are listening to.
Yeah, they
Oh,
need that.
they hear
Most people, like we said, most people don't have the guts to give their true opinion on a, like,
they
okay,
don't.
they don't have the, like, you show them, so I'm an art collector, okay? I collect paintings, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And
Nice.
I'll go into an art gallery and I'll talk to the curator and we'll talk about a painting, what it means to me, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, quite frankly, I don't care. If I'm going to buy a piece of art from a guy and we're going to have a discussion about what it means and then
Mm-hmm.
discuss it, I'm speaking from my heart, right? But so many people are afraid to do that. They're afraid to say, I don't like that piece of artwork there. And I say,
Yeah.
well, why not? Well, I don't have a degree in art history. Like, I don't care about that. Like, you don't need a degree in music. You don't need a master's degree in music to listen to a piece of music and tell me whether or not you like it or not.
No
So
kidding.
no, but so many people won't do that.
Yeah, it's true. No, you're right. They don't have the guts. They just don't. And we're swimming somewhere between, I think, the PC culture, and depending on what part of the country you live. And we got this cancel culture going on, and people getting Me Too'd. And with the Me Too thing, it seemed like that was decades ago for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But but it's we're in this kind of culture. And I think because of that, people are so overtly afraid of hurting people's feelings that they'll do anything but tell you the truth anymore. We're kind of in that participation award kind of era where people
Mm.
feel like, well, look, and the truth is only the truth is going to make you better, you know. You're not going to improve if people are
Hmm.
constantly lying to you about what's wrong. And so I tell people, I tell my kids, I go, I'm going to try to encourage you and all that, but if you screw up, I'm going to tell you because you're not going to get better unless somebody's brave enough. I've long said that it takes two people to be honest, and
True.
women dispute this all the time, but it takes two people to be honest. It takes one person to be honest, and it takes a second person to provide an atmosphere where honesty is welcome.
That's genius.
You know,
Yeah,
and
you know what? It's tough. You know what? That's actually so true because the
Mhm.
truth is not a perspective. The truth needs to be heard or something and accepted.
Absolutely,
You know, and
absolutely.
like there's like it's interesting because that's actually really smart. You know, the truth. It's like this is where Christ says, "When two or more are gathered in my name." Right?
Hmm.
If two or more people agree on something, because he is the way, the truth, and the life, right? You have this truth there, right? This idea of the logos is at the center. You're absolutely right. There's a requirement that the truth be heard and accepted. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
agreed upon. But yeah, I mean, there's an element that's interesting because you're right. Cancel culture is about is a I don't is it about lie? Like it's about the truth not being heard actually. That's what it's about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I
And you
don't
got to.
want to hear the truth. That's what it
Hmm.
is.
There you go. Yeah. So let's get you out of the way. Let's silence you. We,
Yeah.
we don't want to hear.
Your truth
See,
is actually really inconvenient for us.
absolutely, absolutely. It's a funny thing. I've said this to women. I've said this to guys just in life along the
Sure.
way. You got a guy who goes to work 9 to 5 at an oil place. And one day he goes to the strip bar with his buddies. Doesn't do anything, hangs out, watches, throws a few dollar bills out, goes home.
Sure.
So he tells his wife, says, "Where'd you go?" And he goes, "Well, I got off work, I went to the strip bar." Wife flips out on him. "How could you go there? Don't you think I'm beautiful enough? I can't believe you would go there. Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't know if I want to be." She has a big
Sure.
conniption fit, right?
Sure.
So a couple of days later, his buddies are going to the strip bar. Oftentimes, guy's going to go to the strip bar. The difference is he's now not going to tell his wife.
No, he's not going to be
So
honest.
he's going to go home and she's going to say, "What did you do?" "Oh, I just went and had a few drinks and came home."
Yeah. Now you're a
And
liar.
now you're a liar. Now, if it comes out that he indeed went to the strip bar, and she's going to say, "I heard that you went to the strip bar. Why would you lie to me?" And he's going to say, "Well, because the last time I told you about going, you flipped out on me."
Yeah. Sure.
And she's going to say, "So that means it's okay to lie." And so then you got this whole argument about whether he should have lied or shouldn't have lied, and it all kind of started. Now, on a different scenario, if he came home and said, "I went to the strip bar," and she says, "Okay, well, look, I don't mind you going, but I just don't appreciate. I don't think it's a good thing for us. But if that's where you feel like you need to go, then go." Now, if he goes the next time, he's going to feel guilty if he doesn't tell her because she was kind of rational about the last time that it was brought up. He's more likely,
That's a
to say it.
cancel culture too. Right? So
Absolutely.
I could go. That's so fascinating. That's a great. Telling the truth is so important. Actually, the ability to be able, not only like you said, to be able to speak the truth and have the truth be heard, to be able to be honest and have the honesty be heard. Right? Super important. I think. I think that. Um, what's interesting? This lying you're talking about amongst spouses or lovers, right? The lying that starts.
Mhm.
So originally, when you're in a relationship with somebody, you're super honest and vulnerable with them. That's the
Sure.
beauty of it. That's what brings you into it. You're vulnerable, you're being
Absolutely.
yourself, you're there. And then all of a sudden, you encounter that situation where you get punished for honesty. Maybe you don't get forgiven.
Absolutely.
Maybe the person holds
Yep.
a grudge. Maybe they freak out and smash up your house. Then the lying
Yep.
starts,
Hmm.
right? And you know what I believe? I think
What's that?
most married people in bad marriages actually don't know each other very well because they've been lying to each other for so long.
Absolutely. Because neither one, and on both sides, neither one has created any kind of environment that's conducive for honesty.
To
So
be
they're just
accepted.
kind of spoon feed each other just enough to give the appearance of disclosure, but not so much that there's a grudge and a conflict coming. It's like it's kind of weird balancing, and so it's a strange thing. But you're right; it's canceled when people hear songs that they don't think anybody should hear and they think it's disgusting. They'd rather that artist just go away, completely oblivious to the fact that the guy standing behind you thinks that song is genius.
Sure.
And so I think it's look, I'm an old hippie,
Mm.
grew up in the South. I'm a live and let live type of dude. People just you do your thing, I'll do my thing.
Mhm.
And I think that people are getting less and less like that as the years go by. You know, what do you care if the guy across the street is gay? Okay, is he making you come over and watch? If he's not, then why is that your business? You know what I mean?
But I agree with you. I agree
Yeah,
with you, but here's what I would say. Here's what I would say. I think
sure.
people are way too concerned with telling other people who and where they have sex with people. Like, I
Oh,
don't care
absolutely,
who you like.
absolutely.
This idea that I got to be out of the closet and everybody
Oh,
needs to know everything about me, and then I think the gay get it. We're going to get in trouble with this one. I think that one of the issues with the LGBTQ community is that
mhm.
their identity is so wrapped up in the sex they're having.
Absolutely. I agree. Absolutely. And I've said this for years. I'll be watching a television show and somebody will say, I got to come out to my office about who I am. And I would scream at the TV going, why? Why is that their business who you're dating? Why do we need to know this? This is not my business.
Sure.
I don't, and I get, I understand. I get that you feel like you need to say it because there's an inner something in you that feels like you have to um, share with the world. And believe me, I'm not the overshare guy. I'm like, tell me everything and I'll decide
Sure.
what I think of it.
Sure.
But I think when you get people much to the point that you're making, I think that there's too much disclosure.
Yes.
If I was working in an office and somebody, which I was like, my oldest daughter is a lesbian, and she came and told me about it, and I said, okay. She's an adult when she told me, and I go, okay. And she says, well, doesn't that bother you? And I go, no. I, I never asked you who you were dating or who you like to date. So why? I don't care. I don't. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there. And look, we'll never know how many, but
Mhm.
there's a group out there. And you talk to gay folk, and they'll tell you there's a group of folks out there who love to tell the world about it because they want the attention that
Yes.
comes with it.
Agreed. I agree with you.
And I think that that's a shame because there are those out there who quietly live their life, who really want to be able to just be a productive, normal person every day. And when you have one person at the office jump out and say, "Hey, I'm gay, look at me," so then guy or girl B is sitting there going, "Okay, now everybody's going to ask questions about my personal life, and I really don't want to
Sure.
talk about it." So I
Sure.
don't think it's necessarily fair to the second person for the first person to be doing just so they can get attention. So I mean, I've got varied opinions, about it, but
I agree with you. I think another thing, like I think that there's a thrust towards egotism and narcissism in our society.
sure.
Like it's almost like our society is really good at creating sociopaths, narcissists, and egoists. It's like
Mhm.
that's what we've kind of like that's who we hold up as big and you're great. People that want to talk about themselves a lot. People that
Sure.
want to share their personal life. Here's a naked picture of me. Like and that makes you famous or something.
And I do music because when this great experiment in life um, is over, I want to leave some kind of legacy for my kids so
Mm,
they can say, Dad was a good dude. You know, I want something they can put in their player or their MP3 or whatever, or CD or whatever, and
Mm.
push play and go, yeah, he was a talented dude. Just a little something. A little, and when I do on a bigger picture, I do music so in the middle of all this chaos that's going on, 10, 15 years from now, when people are just kind of driving down the street and time comes on, maybe they'll go, oh, yeah, that's when I was working at that job at that accountant firm. Oh, I had a great time there, man. I want people, I want to freeze that, I want people to hear my music and just be like a stake in the ground in their life of what they were thinking. Because that's when I listen to, there's a song by Chicago. Does anybody really know what time it is? Um, and every time I hear that song, I think about being a kid. I think about cutting grapes and picking cotton and just a simpler, we're poor and all get out, but it takes me that time.
I think we went everywhere on this one, man.
Pretty much, brother. Pretty much.
Loved your work, man. And Scott, you're going to, after I'm done this, you're going to ride us out with a tune from Billy Ray, right? For sure. Okay. So, folks,
Awesome.
If you made it here to the end with Billy and I, we are grateful for sure. We appreciate you, and we thank you for doing it. But you know what? Most podcast listeners, they want to start a podcast. So you know what? I would suggest recording 6 of them and then letting Scott Wachter here at getagripstudios.com produce them for you, because that's where all the hard, pain in the butt, procrastination work happens. Most people don't get past 1 or 2 episodes because of the production of podcasts. A lot of work. So go to getagripstudios.com. Of course, we thank Billy Ray. All of his links are going to be up on the getagriponlife.com website. You can check it out there. We thank him for coming on the show. Billy Ray, thank you, buddy.
Thank you, brother.
And
Appreciate
Scott, let's get out of here with something from Billy Ray.
Get the funk.
What are you talking about, man?
Then you gotta give it
I
up.
just tell you this thing about.
Get the funk. Then you gotta give it up. Get the funk. Then you gotta give it up. Get the funk. Then you gotta give it up. It ain't nothing but a party.
What are you saying?
We don't need the police. We ain't smoking that naughty. But you can kiss on me. Take it back to the old school. Before pills and meth. We're gonna turn this to a block party. And we about to get lit. You don't know about karaoke, function James Brown. Then you can't tell me who Roger is or Rick James throwing down. Every time
Yeah, talking about, man. Throw it back like when
we don't care cause we be here to do this, just let me be clear. If you wanna dance, somebody show these kids. Big bro, can you give them some phone now? Freddie, give them a little bit, get it.
Let's go. Let's go. That old school part right there, bro. Get it. Yeah.
Sexy people got nothing to lose. We be showing up late by the 1:45 in the VIP. We the who's who's. You ain't a part of this clique, don't cruise through. Let's go out to Roscoe's chicken spot. You can ask somebody about the funk we got. It's like Bruno Mars meets Billy Ray Rock. I can take you back when Slade was hot, when Parliament first album dropped, when Knee Deep fill the dance floor out, Earth, Band and Fire, make the people stand up. If you feel it's funk, throw your hands out. We don't care cause we be here to do this, just let me be clear.
Come on, y'all. Here we go.
If you wanna dance, somebody show these kids. Big broken and give them some phone now. Freddie, give them a little bit. If you wanna dance, somebody show these kids. Big broken and give them some phone now. Freddie, give them a little bit.
Get the phone, ain't nothing but a party. Get the phone, DJ, that JB said that's Fred right there.